Y'all, like, this was literally the best episode ever. Like, I cannot believe how good this episode was. And literally, it was like one of the best Housewives episodes, like, across the franchises that I've seen in a long time. Like, from the top to the bottom, my notes are crazy. Like, I literally was like thinking last night, how am I supposed to A, watch the episode, and B, record the video while these notes? So I have to watch the episode twice. But we got a lot to cover, so I'm gonna talk extremely fast and I'm gonna try to get everything out and not make this a super long video. But that's why I didn't do it last night, because I was super hyped up because the episode was so good. I knew that I would have just rambled the whole time like I'm doing right now. So let's get started. This is only episode 3. Season 4. We start the episode. They're in Palm Springs. As we all know, the girls are arriving. And I kind of forgot myself. Like, I don't know if this was like good production or whatever, but basically the scene was set, honey. And the girls are coming in. The whole group's coming in. They're entering Trixie Motel. They're greeted by Trixie. You know, they do hugs. They have a little small talk. Lisa talks about her ring. Trixie does a little intro. And then finally, Trixie's like, the other girls are already here. And I had honestly forgotten about this part. So I'm like, great, you know, I got like a little excited. And I don't know if this was rehearsed or what, but immediately as Trixie says this, like I said, there was a little bit of a time between, but as soon as she says it and Whitney and Angie K walk out just like, hey, you know, bathing suits and their little drinks, and the girls are gagging. Like, production literally looked at everybody's face, everybody's reaction, and they're gagging, not only on camera but even in their confessionals. So I was living for that. It was hilarious seeing Mary say, who is Angie? And then we see like Mary's treatment of Angie later on in the episode. Honestly, Mary was like taking it. Like, I would love for y'all to just go look at my tweets from last night, because baby, I was really having a ball. Finally this time, you know, after the ladies have gagged, we don't get too much of a huge reaction while they're hugging and kissing everybody, but then Trixie goes ahead and gives, you know, the rest of the ladies a tour. So we finally get to see the rest of the motel, and it's gorgeous. Like, every single room is super cute. We get a little tidbit of like Trixie showing the rooms that Angie and Whitney picked. We still didn't really get firm confirmation that Whitney got the biggest room, but Trixie said that, you know, when she introduced the room, she's like, this is a little bit bigger, but she didn't say biggest, and she was like, this is Whitney's room. And we got a clip of Meredith making a little bit of a face, but not too much there. I don't know if it's gonna come back up. The ladies have decided now, you know, they'll go to their rooms, they'll do a little, you know, freshen up for about 20 minutes, as Meredith says. I don't know how you do anything in 20 minutes, and they're gonna come back out. So Whitney and Angie are like, well, we're already dressed, we've been here. They're chilling by the pool. Meredith, well, Lisa's the first to come out. So she comes out and she's kiki kaka with Whitney and Angie. And she's just like, yeah, I was surprised you weren't invited in the first place, but this is a great surprise. And then Meredith is the next to come out. Meredith's door is literally behind where they're sitting and kiki kaka. And they kind of pause as she's walking out. You know, it looks like it's going to be that moment where she's like, hey, ladies. She comes to sit down. She literally walks out and goes, as Meredith does, and literally exit stage is left to go to, interesting enough, Heather's room. I had already said the dynamics was weird, because like, who is Meredith gonna link up with? And she goes to Heather. So this is interesting already. She gets to Heather's room, and Heather's already like, she had already mentioned it, because like I said, there weren't big reactions, and Heather was already the one to note like, Meredith's not giving me enough energy. Like, I would have been pissed if I was Meredith. So now that Meredith's in her room, it feels like Heather's trying to like really hype her up. She's just like, this is crazy. Like, I can't believe this. And Meredith seems like she's taking more of just like a calm perspective. Like, her whole thing is like, yeah, it's messed up and I don't like it, but there's just more going on. I'm not really trying to get into it. Like, it is what it is. Seems like Meredith wasn't trying to beef. But it seems like Heather, of course, really wanted to make the beef occur, because she also doesn't like Angie K. Like, come on now. And I think there is still some like hostility there between her and Whitney. You know, that friend is just like, that's messed up, right? Like, this is crazy, right? Like, you're pissed, right? That's what Heather's giving. She literally calls it an act of war. Like, and there was a pause where Meredith was like, well, yeah, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know if she was like convinced, or she was like, oh, Heather's really feeling some type of way. But we see, you know, later in the episode, spoiler alert, that it does definitely become warlike. like everybody really had a moment this episode. I'm kind of gagged. So Mary comes out, and Angie's, you know, she just met Angie, but Angie's trying to give girlfriend. Angie's got a ton of energy. Let's just say that. Let's just go ahead and get that out. And she's just like, she had already approached Mary at the table, like, hey, Mary, yeah, girl, get some food. Woo, woo. And Mary didn't respond. And then they go sit down. She's like, yeah, Mary, like, come over and get some food. And Mary's like, girl, like, stop talking to me like that. Like, I don't like it. I'm not coming over there. And then Mary proceeds to get into Whitney, like, immediately. She sits 14 feet away, and she's behind Angie. So Angie's back is to her. She's not even, there's no conversation to be had with Angie, honey. She just gathered her up. And she's like, so Whitney, like, why are you here early? Like, it wasn't even a genuine question of fact. Like, hey, why are you here early? It was literally like I know this is some BS, so let me go ahead and get started. Why are you here early? And Whitney's like, well, you know, I'm friends with Trixie. And she's like, so that's why you're here early? And you knew that Mary was trying to get into it, because for anybody else, honestly, that answer would have sufficed. Like, I don't really know what else we're going to get out of that. But Mary is filming a TV show, honey. I don't know who discussed Mary's friend of contract with her, but they let her know, baby girl, that we have an assignment for you. And she is on assignment. There are like no dull spots as it pertains to Mary's position on this cast. She just immediately gets into it with Whitney. She's like, well, I feel like it's childish. Like, she never loses an opportunity to tell Whitney that she's childish. But we didn't really get much of a response from Whitney. I think Whitney's used to it at this point. And Whitney's position this season is more so like, I'm being messy. I know I'm being messy, and I'm not going to go back and forth about it. But Angie jumps in, even though Mary has already told her, girl, leave me alone. Stop talking to me. And she's just like, well, you may think it's childish, but Whitney actually included me, unlike Meredith and unlike Heather wants to. And Mary literally, before she even says a word, she has already given 7 swats at the air. And she's like, I'm not even talking to you. So she even had a moment to chew on whatever she was eating. As she's just like, girl, not speaking to you. And that was wrapped on up. So we proceed. Finally, we get everybody out for what seemed like 5 minutes. Like, I feel like everybody went for that 20 minutes to change into their bathing suits, and then they got like 2 seconds at the pool, and then Meredith was like, come on, let's go. So that was interesting. But I do like the game that Meredith introduced. You know, she's like, we're gonna go in pairs, and we're all gonna go shopping. We're gonna split into 2 groups, 2 different stores, and we're gonna shop for whoever our partner is that we're working on a relationship with, and we're gonna pick out an outfit for them to wear to dinner. I thought that was extremely fun. The pairings were pretty, you know, obvious. You get the Whitney and the Heather, you get the Lisa and the Meredith, and you get Mary and Monica, because they're newer-ish, right? And then obviously we have some leftover because we have Angie K, and she wasn't invited. Meredith, to me, wasn't combative about this at all. Like I said, it doesn't feel like Meredith wants to get into it, and I'm gonna highlight why I think she doesn't want to get into it later. But, you know, she just simply says, you know, Angie, I didn't know you were coming, so, you know, you can either go by yourself or you can, you know, team up with Whitney. Like, you know, it's up to you. And immediately Angie is on 17,000, and she's just like, yeah, well, thank you for acknowledging that you didn't invite me. And Meredith's like, okay, you know, so I definitely points away from Angie for that, because, like I said, I don't feel like Meredith was being combative, but I feel like Angie definitely wanted to tussle. The interesting part is that Monica, who Angie technically brought in to the show, and she highlights to us, I don't think that matters, but Monica's like, ew, like across the room. 2 things on that. She justifies it later by saying, like, you know, as Angie's friend, she wants to acknowledge that, but if that's your friend, then I think that you would pull her to the side and have that conversation. That's one thing. The second thing is, maybe I have 2.5. The second thing is, Monica, even in that moment, has started to strike me as somebody who inserts themselves in things. You do sometimes need that voice of reason in certain situations, but I don't think screaming out, ew, in the middle of a conflict between 2 people that you really don't know like that makes much sense. And then my half of a thing is, part of me and my gut feels like Monica is a little bit of a pick me almost, since that's a popular phrase for the kids these days. She's kind of like a pick me, so I think she likes to let people know that she's there. Angie's feeling some type of way. She's, like I said, she's on 10. And she's having a conversation with Lisa. Now Lisa's friend is there so they can, Kavaji and stuff like that. And she's talking with Lisa and she's just letting her know, she feels some type of way, particularly about, the thing that Monica did. And it's just like, why would you insert yourself? Which I would have to agree. Lisa seems to be this season so far for me taking a mediator approach. So she's just kind of listening and assessing, and she agrees for the most part, but it's not a combative thing or anything. Angie's just getting out all of her energy. She has a ton of it. I'm gonna keep saying that. And I guess, it's a motel and it looks like it's one floor and whatever. So Monica's right around the bend and she comes over. She's like, I can hear you guys, which I live for. Like, that was legendary because I feel like on other housewives you would hear them and you will probably like address it later at the dinner where we're going to inevitably argue because we know the housewives formula, but she jumps in it right there. So I'm like, ladies, excellent. Even though we only have 2 seconds to get dressed and go shopping, even though we just got here 3 seconds ago, let's argue a little bit first. So I lived for that. So Monica comes in and she's like, I can hear you, like you sound upset. What's the tea? And Angie's like, well, I'm glad you're here. And she's like, I really didn't like what you did that back there. Like, you're supposed to be my friend. I brought you to the group. And Monica's like, like I was just saying, I feel like Monica gives a BS response. And she's just like, well, as your friend, I just want to let you know, like, I feel like you should. She even says, like, I feel like you should address that with her. And it's like, well, if you felt that way, that seems like an indication that you felt like Angie should not have been combative in front of the group. She should have pulled Meredith to the side and discussed it. I agree with that. But you contradict yourself because you made a vocal response of ew in front of the group. You know what I'm saying? So you made it bigger. You amplified it at the end of the day. So when they're out shopping, I thought that, obviously Meredith said they were going to go in 2 groups. But it was literally all of the like main housewives and then Mary and Monica in a separate group, right? Like literally Whitney, Heather, Lisa, Meredith, Angie, all went to one store, and then they're like, oh, Monica and Mary, you guys go over here. So for me, I'm like, I wonder who produced that. And I always like to give it to the ladies, you know what I'm saying? Because I feel like after a while, like they know what's gonna make a scene or whatever and make things make sense. So I would like to give it to Meredith, even if it's not hers to have, for producing that scene. And she's like, I'm going to put all the main housewives or the girls that we know in one store, and we'll just have chaos there because there's a Lisa, there's a Meredith, there's a Heather, there's a Whitney, and then there's Angie. So there's going to be tea. And then I'm going to put Monica and Mary in the other store and they'll figure it out. So I lived for that. It seemed like Mary was having a good time. Like Mary's whole vibe is like, I don't live for this. I don't want to do this, which is just hilarious. We love that. But it seemed like she was having a good time with Monica. So I enjoy watching that. It's interesting watching Meredith have to be in the store with Angie. And Angie is, again, still has a lot of energy. And similar to Monica, she has like a pick me type of vibe. And she's being loud. I feel like she's being loud because she wasn't invited. So now she's one of those people where it's like, I wasn't invited. So let me really let my presence known, even though it wasn't allowed here. Let me really let y'all know that I'm here. And Meredith is very irritated with her and like, whispering, please be quiet to the camera because she's so loud in this tiny store. And I can understand that, like, the loud noises don't work with me either, Meredith. So team Meredith on that one. I guess I was part of the T or the Kiki, but I didn't get that because Meredith did say when she introduced the game that they weren't costumes, but every single one of them were wearing something that was kind of costumey. Like, they looked crazy. Whitney looked crazy as hell. And I didn't even realize it until Lisa was complaining about it, but she did have on a bathing suit and a cover up. So I'm like, oh, they look crazy, And I thought it was funny when Heather's reads are really kind of doing it for me. Heather and Whitney's reads and their analysis after 4 seasons have really elevated, and especially because they're not sharing a brain anymore. And Heather gets a read in and she's like, I can tell that Meredith is living for dressing Lisa, like that's her fantasy.
You think Meredith wants to be wearing double-breasted blazers and flare pants to every activity?
And I'm just like, but you're supposed to be Meredith's new ally. Like, you're her new left arm. You're her new shoulder. Like, and you're reading her. Like, and come on, don't even give me fun shade. Like, girl, that was a read. So they leave there with their costumes and they're immediately going to dinner. And I'm just thinking to myself, this is the most exhausting day. Like they literally said that the travel was exhausting to go such a short distance. They get there, they get shocked with Angie. They sit down for 2 seconds. Angie starts screaming. Angie gets into it with Monica. They get up, they go put on costumes. They're immediately going to this 5-star restaurant. And Lisa's in the car talking about her ring again. I'm cracking up. And it's only been about 24 minutes of the episode. Like, things are just like, it's just like, I don't know, like the episode was building up to just be, it was already amazing, but it was just naturally building up to just be iconic. And it was crazy. I was gagging the whole time. Again, check my tweets. Some of my tweets. I thought it was just so funny. Like, I love Lisa. Like, I'm sorry, this is the Lisa Stan page. So I thought it was funny listening to Lisa complaining about her ring. I can understand if I was there, like, listening to it, it'd probably be annoying. But I also take into account that she lost it that day. Like, this has been a long, drawn out day. And so, yeah, she's still complaining about this ring. And now she's complaining about wearing this bathing suit to a 5-star restaurant because Lisa is bougie. And Lisa is very New York. Like, y'all know that. Like, come on now, if y'all have been tuning in. So I thought it was hilarious. I thought her comparison of being in The Shining, she's like, I'm just stuck at this point. I lived, because that is very much so me.
This is no longer a fun girls trip. This is like The Shining, and I am trapped. And next thing you know, 2 twins are going to knock on my door and say, Red Rum. I will never get dressed up again.
Girl, this is where Whitney starts to eat it even more. This isn't even Whitney's trip, and they've sat down at dinner, and Whitney's like, let's play a game. Like, my girl is producing already, and she's like, let's play a game. The seating at this dinner could not have been more perfect, but we'll get to that in the second game. The first game is that they want to, say interesting facts about each other, and I thought it was just, well, you'll say it about yourself and share it with everybody else. And I thought it was hilarious that I like that Mary participated for the first point. And I like that Mary was just like, I'm a loner, which I think is obvious, and I think everybody thinks that's obvious, but it was just hilarious to see the montage of Mary being a loner. Like, Mary is such a key, and we just need her there. Like, we just do. She fits. It was also hilarious hearing Monica just tell them, like, y'all are boring. And I like that, because then you get to see, like, okay, this is a little bit of the older cast. Like, yeah, there's some younger. Like, I feel like their ages vary. I don't know them, but I would assume that they vary. But it seems like Monica comes in and she's like the fresh, younger, fish in the pond. And she's like, y'all are boring. And she tells a story about sleeping with her brother-in-law. I like Monica, so it's going to give I don't like Monica, but I got a sense of, I understood her saying it because she's like, I'm bored, let me spice it up a little bit, but that also gave me a little bit of pick-me energy. So I'm just trying to I'm analyzing, so I'm just trying to pick out the red flags here, because I like Monica, but there's obviously gonna be something. Like, I think at the end of the day, Monica's gonna end up being more of a polarizing character than we think, because I think she came on the first 3 episodes, everybody's like, I really like her, I like her, because myself included. But now in this episode, I'm starting to see some things where I'm like, And then I have to think back to the pretext that was set. She's supposed to come on here and spill tea and be messy, right? She hasn't really gotten there yet, but she's giving me red flags in other ways. So I'm like, there's something. So, she does that. I think it was funny how the producers showed that slowed down clip of like everybody just being boring, but specifically Meredith talking about, her family used to bring her out to Palm Springs as a child. Like, girl, that's not an interesting fact, Meredith. Be for real. We then get the key game of the night, child. And first of all, I live for an espresso martini with tequila. I'm going to put that out there, first and foremost. So I can understand, and definitely after 1.5 of those, it's up and it's stuck. So the ladies, obviously not everybody had one, but it just felt like everybody at the table was feeling themselves, okay? And like I said, it had been a long day, so I think the dollies were tired. They had on costumes. They were drunk. It looked like they were eating tapas. I didn't see any heavy meals, so this was just a recipe for a disaster. And it's only the first night on the trip. Child. They play Warm and Fuzzy, Cold and Prickly, which is an interesting name. I think we need to come up with something else. But this one, I was saying, the seating at the table was just, that was perfect. And I was only God, because I didn't see anybody produce that. Because when it started, like, the seating was already decent. But then we obviously know that Heather, who was sitting next to Lisa originally, switched with Monica, who was at the other end of the table. They switched. It just became perfect. And I think that, I don't know if Whitney, I don't know how long they were sitting there, and I don't know how quick Whitney's analytical skills are, but I would like to think, like I said, liking to give credit to the ladies, I would like to think that at least that Whitney peeped the scenario, and she was like, oh, perfect, let's play a game, and we're going to specifically go to the person to our right. For sure. That's it. Nobody else at the table. Like, just the person to your immediate right. That's it. And it's perfect because not only is Monica sitting right next to Lisa, but Heather is sitting right next to Angie. Like, it was just fantastic. It was just fantastic. Like, there were so many opportunities here. Heather gets to going, and I thought it was cute. Like, she did her warm and fuzzy first. So her warm and fuzzy about Angie, because Angie was to her right, was that, you know, she said the name of the school, I guess. I forget the name of it, but it had like an Olay in there or something like that. I think that's the name of the school. But she was referencing their past, which I thought was super cute. And then she's like, the cold and prickly is, and she kind of, you know, hesitated, and Angie's like, just give it to me. This is the calmest Angie was all episode. Maybe she was tired. And she's like, just give it to me. And she's like, I don't trust you. So Lisa is gagging. Lisa's at the end of the table like, what? And, you know, Heather's just like, that's typical Heather. She likes to drop things and then just be like, okay, let's go. And she's like, I don't really want to get into it. Do you guys want to get into it? And Lisa's like,
What?
I mean, do we want to get into it right now?
I'm kind of
Go
curious.
ahead. You know, you threw it out there in front of everybody,
I'm
and I'm
curious.
Well,
my girl. Heather's like, well, yeah, like, you know, you kind of fell into that friendship with Jen, and then now you're falling in with Lisa, and she's barely getting it out, and Lisa's like, BS. And she's like, if that's the case, Heather, like, girl, you were all over Jen last season. Should we not trust you? Gag. And Heather's like, maybe not. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, yes, girl, clock that T. And I like how Angie circled back around, because then Heather has a whole back and forth with Lisa before she's even like, why am I discussing this with you? I was talking to Angie. And Lisa's like, to Lisa's credit, she was put in it. So it's like, girl, you're saying that this girl is all over me. So yes, I have an opinion about it. But Heather has that debate, loses it, and then comes back around. And Angie's like, well, talk to me. Like, now you're back to me. Lisa, let me handle this. Eating it. No matter how y'all feel about Angie, she was eating it. I'm sorry. And Heather was doing well as well. Don't get me wrong. I think Heather, ever since, I would have to say season 1 reunion is when I first peeped it, you know, when she was teamed up with Whitney. Her whole thing against Lisa is just an insecurity at the end of the day. Like, Lisa doesn't give her the time of day, so it's just an insecurity. And she just does not like that Angie K is cool with Lisa. And same thing with Jen almost. There's an insecurity there, because it's just like Jen was really the only one that she could hatch on to, because nobody was really kicking it with Heather, especially when she fell out with Whitney. And Jen was just easy cash. Jen didn't even like Heather, but she could play like she liked Heather, and Heather felt good, and you know, she just felt valid there, so she was all on Jen's neck. But it's just like, it's all based on insecurity, and she just didn't like at that time that she wanted to be besties with Jen, but Jen seemingly cared more about her relationship with Angie K. She's just being Heather. Even more perfect, Meredith has Whitney. She gives her, I don't remember what her warm and fuzzy was, who cares? And she gets the cold and prickly, and she's like, my cold and prickly is, and Whitney's like, is it that I brought Angie K? Producing. It's like, bring up that tea. And again, Meredith not trying to get into it. I still haven't figured out why. At that point when I was watching, I hadn't figured out why. Got y'all though. And she's like, yeah, no, I wasn't gonna say that. It's just that what did she say? Your communication.
Wait, Meredith, no.
Not today. Not in Mary's new friend of contract. She's like, no, Meredith. Like, that's not what you said. Like, you were clearly very upset about the fact that Whitney brought Angie. Like, you know, what's the tea? What's the tea, daughter? Like, what are you talking about? While still sipping her drink and stuffing her face, just like she gathered Angie. Like, she does everything at once. Okay, Mary's got it. Meredith's like, I did feel that type of way, but I'm not going there. Like, it is what it is. Gathered that right back up on again. Like, Meredith is very good at almost deflection and just being like, you know, I'm not really going to talk about that. Like, it is what it is. She was not trying to get into it. And for a while, I was giving her points. Like, okay, she doesn't want to argue, but there's tea behind that. And I know I keep alluding to it, but it just keeps coming up. So Meredith, you know, she doesn't get into it at this point. Now, Miss Monica. This is what put the nail in it for me with Miss Monica, at least for this episode. She has Lisa. And the obvious is about to come out. I don't think there's any suspense here. But she gives her a very generic warm and fuzzy, and she's like, I like that you were a good sport about the swimsuit. Fine, whatever, girl, please go to hell. And then the cold and prickly, she hesitates because, ooh, suspense. And she's just like, she sets it up. This is where she lost me immediately. She set it up by relating the story to herself. And it's like, baby girl, this don't have nothing to do with you. Like, this is already, you were already projecting from the get-go. Like, up out your mouth, you were projecting. And she's just like, for somebody that's going through a divorce and having to figure it out with 4 kids on their own, like, I really didn't like that you were complaining about your $60,000 ring all day. And then she goes even forward, because I could have given her some points, and I am still going to give her some points. But she even goes forward, because Lisa's not giving her much. She's not interjecting at this point. And she even goes forward to kind of mimic Lisa, like, my $6,000 ring, my $6,000 ring. Like, and I'm like, that's not the way that you approach something in a genuine conversation. So that would have got me amped up. And I think that did get Lisa amped up, because it's just like, girl, first of all, Monica, you talking about you and your kids had to figure it out, blah, 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 blah. But you were just crying last episode about, oh my God, I had to go to the Louis Vuitton store and get a bag because I felt like I had to fit in. There was no struggle identified there. People that are, not to say she's not struggling, everybody's struggling, baby, I'm broke too. But it's like, people that are struggling, they don't just be like, oh, I just went and grabbed a bag. That's literally how she said it. She didn't say, I had to go into my credit card. I maxed my credit card out. I had to borrow money. You clearly had the funds to just go willy-nilly buy you a Louis Vuitton bag so you felt like you could fit in. So don't be sitting here trying to come up with the struggle is a real story and project that on Lisa because you're feeling some type of way that she's talking about a $60,000 ring. You got on a Louis Vuitton bag that you just purchased for this moment to fit in with these ladies. So what are you talking about? Like, the hypocrisy is crazy. Like, girl, you are not without the way that you're saying you are. And it will be different if her whole background was that, oh, I've been trying to work it alone, blah, blah, blah. You just told us that you had a husband that was handling everything, all the financials and everything. I understand that that's changed because you're not with him now because you slept with your brother-in-law, so that's your fault. But your finances have nothing to do with Lisa. At the end of the day, you're projecting. If you wanted to have a separate issue, which I've already said, if you were annoyed with her bringing up her ring all day, that makes sense. That's fine, because I probably wouldn't want to hear about it either. But to Lisa's credit, it just happened that day. So I will be talking about it as well. If you don't want to hear it and you feel the type of way, fine. But you've been audibly complaining about it since last episode, so you clearly feel some type of way about it and you're projecting at the end of the day. I didn't like that on Monica. I thought it looked gross, and I feel like she was really trying to, like I said, she was mimicking Lisa, really trying to get into it and make it a thing. Nobody else at the table was saying anything, if you guys noticed. And Lisa's barely giving her anything. So it's like, at that time, I don't even like using this terminology, but at that time, Monica was looking for a moment. She really was. Like, at the end of the day, let's be real. So I'm seeing some cracks in Monica, and I don't like them at the end of the day. And I like that Lisa kind of clocked that and paid that dust.
I just say to be aware.
Yep, I got it.
Because, girl, please. And then she even starts to be like, Monica starts to be very just like condescending. And she's like, girl, you're blessed. We get it. Like, you're blessed, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, who's even talking about that? Like, you're literally getting off the rails. And Lisa's like, yeah, I am blessed. I've worked hard to be this blessed. Like, it's like she was trying to poke at Lisa and make a thing. And it just really wasn't a thing. It would be very much so simple just to be like, hey, sis, you were complaining about that ring a lot. And leave it alone. It don't have nothing to do with you and your Louis Vuitton bag and your husband and your brother-in-law that you slept with and the fact that there are blessings that are falling upon all of us. It don't have nothing to do with none of that. You didn't like hearing her complain about the ring. Be done with it. And shut up. This ain't even the last blow up of the night. So now we get, Angie K getting into it with Meredith, honey. Meredith is just... she's not giving Angie anything. I don't think at this time Angie was trying to make a moment either. She's just like, girl, let's be real. Like, Angie is just like, you didn't invite me. Like, I'm not really understanding what the issue is. Like, it doesn't seem rooted in anything. And Meredith comes up, and I've already said this. I said this episode 1. Meredith is very good at saying, like, well, I heard this, and I know for sure that this happened. Like, just dropping these things out of nowhere to substantiate these issues, because Meredith always has an issue. Always. Angie's clocking it. She's like, girl, that's BS. And it kind of went back and forth. And Meredith was just being very dismissive because, again, she didn't want to get into it. She's being dismissive. She's like, I don't want to be friends with you. Like, you said we weren't going to be friends, even though I'm sure she didn't say that. She's like, girl, we're not going to be friends. And then finally, Angie, to her credit, I feel like Angie got fed up. And she's like, girl, please. Like, this is all BS. This is all fluff.
You run your life. Everything about you is fake.
Okay, Angie,
Angie,
get out.
Stop. Don't tell me how to act.
No, this is disgusting.
Like, eating her up, and Monica inserting herself again. Not even like a subtle, like, tap your friend on the leg, pull your friend to the side, text your friend like, girl, chill, don't do this, da da da. She's loud, audibly being like, stop, 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 trying to get camera time, I'm clocking Monica's tea. So Monica's being annoying. Like, at that point, I would have chopped Monica. I'm chopping her from home, and I feel like Angie should have chopped her in Palm Springs. It took me the second watch to really get it. At this point, I mean, Angie was reading Meredith. She was fed up. And Meredith, to me, I think that Meredith got embarrassed. And I feel like Meredith, she didn't have anything substantial to say. Like, I think she makes up a lot of fluff to have these issues. And she typically disengages, so she doesn't have to do the back and forth. And Angie was reading her rights and giving her facts. That doesn't mean Angie's perfect. Angie definitely has her flaws. But Meredith wasn't giving anything substantial. And Angie, I don't even feel like Angie was turned up on her until this point. So now it's like, girl, it's your fault for being dismissive. Now she's turned up and now you don't have anything. So, you know, Meredith starts crying and talking about disabled children. Everybody's confused.
What's going on?
It didn't make any sense. And I was trying to read between the lines to see if there was really something there until Whitney clocked some tea for me later on the bus. People have been calling her unhinged.
She needs to leave. I'm the hostess of the dinner, and her behavior is not acceptable. I'd like for her to leave.
I'll do whatever I can.
Girl, Meredith, are you for real? Like, and Angie did not sway. Her hair didn't even blow in the wind. There was no movement. I did think it's funny that even Mary clocked, like, I don't think Meredith should have had that last drink, because I would have to agree, like, everybody was lit. We've already talked about this. But I do like, at least, that when Meredith, you know, stormed out, that Lisa went after her. I thought that was nice to see, because I feel like maybe Lisa has the closest, even though they're not as close, she's had the closest relationship with Meredith, so she probably knows the, like, unhinged Meredith. And so she's trying to calm her down is what I really think was happening, because we're on camera, we're working, and Meredith is really going off the handle. And Lisa's just kind of like, she's like staring at the camera like, I mean, it's fine. Like, there's a lot going on. And it did feel like she was trying to talk it down. And she's like, look, the perspective I feel like Lisa had was like, we've all done weird things in our relationships. Like, our friendships, there's been a lot happening, but like, we got to try to get past it. And Meredith, something just flips on her and she just starts going off like, I will air her out, like, go in on her husband, all types of stuff. Through the slurs, the drunken slurs that I heard, Meredith was going off. So, I mean, points were made. Now, do I think these things are going to come out? No. Typically, when Meredith makes these threats, you shouldn't, like, take any threats as idle unless they come from Meredith Marks, because, again, she doesn't substantiate anything that she says. I also thought it was hilarious that somebody clocked, I don't know who it was, but I believe it was Heather. And she's like, because I was thinking it, she's like, Meredith left with an English accent. So Heather is drunk, Meredith is crying hysterically, and the girls are just at the table looking. I mean, girl, like, you know, Meredith comes back to the table, though, with Lisa, and it did feel like Angie, I don't know what her angle was, but again, she wasn't turned up, and she was just letting her know, like, I wasn't trying to do all of this, Meredith, girl, like, I'm just trying to get the tea, like, what is the problem? Like, why didn't you invite me? And Meredith breaks down into tears again. And she starts just talking about how she wants to worry about things that matter in life. Like, Kim, people are dying. You know, that's Meredith's tea, I guess. It was interesting to me that Lisa kind of took Angie's side in this instance. Because, I mean, she just doesn't like the rumor thing. Like, they did the montage of Meredith last season spreading the rumors about Lisa. So Lisa's just like, I don't like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't like going that angle. I do get that that's Meredith's go-to, like, when she's in conflict. And I don't necessarily feel like Angie started with her, but Angie did go there first, right? Like, I feel like Meredith was dismissive. That turned up Angie, and I can understand, because when people are dismissive to me, I start yelling and screaming as well. So, not that that's okay, but Angie, you know, went off and started calling her fake at the end of the day, and then Meredith's like, well, I've got rumors. You know, so I can understand the perspective that Lisa has, but it's still interesting to me if she picked a side. I probably wouldn't have picked a side, because I don't know. They both were wrong, and they're both just like, I still don't even sitting here right now, I don't even know what side I would have picked, because, baby, that was chaos. I don't think that Meredith has if she don't like Angie just to not like Angie, then I think that that's fine. But I think that Angie questioning it, it's fine as well, but I don't know that I would be pushing like Angie is. And I don't know that I would be dismissive like Meredith is. That's it. Lastly, we are in the bus. The girls are on their way home. Everybody is tore up, especially Heather. And before she gets to throwing up, Whitney's trying to, like, Meredith's on the bus and she's crying and she's getting comforted by Monica because Monica needs the camera time and she needs to make allies on the show. And she's just like, there's a lot going on that people don't know about. And Whitney's like, what's happening? Because Whitney's sitting right there. And she's like, what's happening? And Meredith is saying, like, there's a lot going on, but no context, never any context. And everybody in the bus is like, well, can you just tell us a little? Like, what is it, Meredith? She's like, I can't. And Whitney clocked some tea that I never thought would have been clocked. Like, I didn't think they made clocks for this. Like, she's literally like, this is so convenient. And at first I was like, oh. Because it was just so, like, oh my God. But, like, at the end of the day, points were being made. I do feel like part of me is like there could be something serious going on with Meredith that she can't tell us about, but that is a recurring thing. So part of me is also like this could be convenient. Like Whitney's saying, like Whitney said, there's always something with Meredith. Like whenever she's confronted with something and has to deal with something, it's always like, well, there's too much going on, but I can't talk about it. So as I like to say, two things can be true. Like, I don't doubt that Meredith's probably going through something, but I also don't doubt that she might be using it to get out of group conflict. She storms off. It does feel like Whitney was just trying to have a let's keep it a buck type of conversation. Like, girl, come on. Like, let's just talk about it. And Meredith storms off like she typically does. But I do feel like Whitney was just like, talking like this. Whitney does hella this anyway. Like, so she really was just trying to chop it up, and Meredith was not trying to hear it. But that's a conversation toe to toe that I would love to hear. So I hope that they table that for the reunion. We could have that conversation for the whole first part of the reunion because I really would like to get into the nitty gritty of it without Meredith running away. Everybody gets off the bus, and we just have Whitney, Heather, and Mary left. And this was just Mary's opportunity. I don't know if Mary was lit. Well, everybody was lit, so I could assume she was lit. But, you know, when you get that opportunity where it's like, I've been waiting to get into you. And Meredith is trying to get into Whitney. She's just like, you're so childish. You're so immature. Like, I don't know why you're doing this, blah, blah, blah. And at first it starts off as almost a defense of Meredith. Like, why are you doing all this? Why are you causing trouble? But then the truth comes out, as it always does. And she's just like, we get some fact around why she doesn't like Whitney, because she's never liked Whitney. She's just like, you talked all this mess about me and my family, and you called me pornography, which took us 20 minutes to realize that she was trying to say predator with the help of Heather, whose head was down. She was throwing up for 45 minutes, but conveniently she lifted that head up, baby, to say predator and throw Whitney under the bus. This is the second time this episode that Mary was like, what is it, Heather? Like, when they were having a drink, she was like, what drink is it? She's like, espresso martini. And then she's like, Heather, what's the word that Whitney called me? And she's like, predator. So that's why I'm like, did Mary have a conversation with Heather about Whitney? Like, I hope Whitney clocked that tea, because that was some mess. And Heather was very eager to throw her under the bus with that. So that was some tea. I don't remember Whitney calling Mary a predator. I don't know if that happened on TV or not. I don't doubt that it happened. But, you know, they're arguing about that. And Mary is pissed about it. Like, I've never heard Mary be this directly expressive about anything, because she kind of just doesn't really address anything. She just made it very clear she don't like Whitney. But we never really gotten anything concrete until now. I like I said, this is literally one of the best episodes that has occurred. Like, in the whole Housewives franchise, but definitely for Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Like, they went insane. Like, gold stars to everybody involved. I don't care if you even were handing out waters while the ladies were stepping their foots on the bus. Like, if you were involved in any way in this episode, kudos to you. And please keep it coming. And I will see y'all next time.